And welcome back to the Overmongcast. This is Jay here, and this week we indulge in two of my personal favorite hobbies, dungeon crawling and food. This time we indulge in our intrusive thoughts, not FDA approved, about eating dungeon creatures. On this episode, we read chapters 1-13 of Dungeon Meshi. Let's start!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Overmongcast. My name is Sam, and as always, here at the top of the show, we talk about what our familiarity with the franchise that we read this week is. I think I've heard of this one before, but short of that, never encountered anything about it, so I'm a Dungeon Meshi noob in that case. Matt, how about you?
I'm pretty sure I read a bit more than what we read of Dungeon Meshi. It's episodic, so it's hard to be certain. But I think I've read more than what we got to. It's been a while, though.
And Jay, how about you?
I am also a Dungeon Meshi noob, so this is a first take for me, but I am a cooking manga, cooking anime fan, so.
Excellent. And Jacob?
So this isn't, is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Yeah, no, I've not heard of this before.
No, different dungeon manga, Jake.
Yeah, I've never heard of this.
I assume there's much less implied cannibalism in the one you mentioned.
You know what? I believe there is. You're probably right about that.
This opens up with the classic JRPG plot hook. That is a small village accidentally finds that their catacombs go deeper than they thought. And a withered man in the depths of the darkness goes, "I am the king of the ancient kingdom that was once here. A wizard cursed me and my land. Defeat him and you will be the new king. I will now turn to dust. Play."
Oh, I hate it when that happens. Mysterious old men.
Mysterious old men hiding in catacombs is no basis for a form of government.
So we immediately go into RPG mode.
Because when there is a call for adventure, you bet that adventurers will show up. And this is where we are introduced to our adventurers, the heroes that we will be following, in the middle of fighting an enormous huge dragon.
The dragon design, simple.
Yeah, it's a classic
Elegant.
Dragon. Big monster. Got the horns, got the big claws, usual.
Yes.
They're ready to go. They're all prepared. They've got their strategies. They got their buffs up. They're ready to win this fight. Unfortunately, they forgot one of the most important things about prepping for a raid. Nobody brought food.
Damn it. No one brought snacks.
Well, to be fair, they did have food, but they fumbled around a little bit in the upper levels of the dungeon, lost their supplies, had to spend more resources than they really should have on some basic traps. You know how it goes. It's what happens into every roguelite player at least once or 100 times. Speaking,
It happens to RPG players once. It happens to roguelite players constantly because that's literally the point of roguelites. Yeah, in all honesty, this has a bit more of a roguelite feel to it than an RPG feel to it now that you mention it.
Especially once we get into how this manga treats death, which is on like the silly to serious scale, somewhere around the popular perception of Dragon Ball.
It really do be. I actually found that pretty interesting. This is something that's mentioned multiple times throughout. Revival is a common, normal thing. And one of the things I felt was kind of interesting, because this isn't something that you see very often. There was like this feeling around death of it being so like mundane and casual. Like there's no sense of urgency because you can just res someone. Yeah, that kind of makes sense in a world like this. Like people would become desensitized to death if you've experienced before it and come back from it. And like, I do kind of get the feeling like everyone being so cavalier about it has and will continue to cause problems. You know, like people aren't taking it seriously, even though they should.
Yeah. And that's reflected in this opening dragon fight because they're all acting like they are so prepped for this raid that they can just walk in and win like it's no problem. And the being hungry is actually pretty distracting, and everyone's getting their asses kicked. So much so that the tank barely notices the DPS have all been wiped out by the raid mechanics, or the fact that the dragon's about to eat him until his sister, one of the mages, goes and knocks him out of the way of a deadly attack, and she gets fucking eaten. Just chomp.
At least she's in one piece, though, which is why there's hope.
Yeah, she uses her magic to teleport them all out of the dungeon, and that is where our main character squad for the rest of the most of our main character squad for the rest of the manga wakes up. We have, I'm not sure how to pronounce this man's name. It's like Laios, Laos.
I think it's Laos. That's how I've been pronouncing it in my head.
Yeah, I think it's Laos.
Yep. Laos the warrior. It was his sister, Phelan, who heroically saved him and was eaten.
I feel like Phelan is just like a cursed name because I can't remember how many like dungeon manga where there's some Phelan that something terrible happens to. And we have to go and like.
It's like when you have it's like when you're a mom and you have the ponytail that goes in front of your shoulder. Like, it's just over. It's already over.
Yeah.
Well, also, like, I misread her name when I was scanning through it, and I thought her name was Fallen, like, has fallen. Like, okay, so that's the kind of manga we're reading, huh?
I mean, kind of.
We also have Marcel, the elf cleric, consummate complainer, and another man whose name is really hard to pronounce, Chilchuck. He's a halfling thief. He's the Bilbo Baggins.
He also is adorable and low-key my favorite character.
He is great.
It's one of those ones where it's like I keep noticing his big ears, and I have to remind. Oh no, halfling. Got it. Okay, yeah, that's not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much on purpose.
Yes, they are the only ones remaining, as the rest of the surviving party members, after getting their asses thoroughly trounced, handed in their letters of resignation. So they have given up on this party and are going to pursue prospects elsewhere. And this has left our remaining heroes in a bit of a bind because adventuring is expensive. They have lost everything. All their treasure left behind in the dungeon. All their supplies gone.
They only have the gear on their backs.
Mm-hmm. More importantly, Laos isn't willing to simply accept his sister as dead, even if she has been eaten. They should be able to slay the dragon, cut open its belly, and pull out her half-digested remains to get her resurrected. We just have to make sure she doesn't get excreted, because we're not sure people can be revived from that.
That's the sort of like, you're awfully casual about this, and it's like, but like, of course they would be if death is that solvable a problem that there are people whose day job it is to cast res. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, people wouldn't care.
There's people whose day job it is to wander into the dungeon, find fallen adventurers, and haul them back up to the rezzers. Like, they got an entire cottage industry built out of the idea of making sure people don't stay dead.
At first, Laos insists on going in alone because he doesn't want to risk the safety and well-being of his friends, which it's like, well, wait, if death is so meaningless, why would that be a problem? We'll get to that. They actually hide this little nugget about his character fairly well in the first half of the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first half of the first chapter, but by about halfway through.
Mm-hmm. Because you see, despite being humanfighter.jpg,
he really is a cardboard cutout, like with full intention, but he really do be a cardboard cutout.
Laos is not just humanfighter.jpg. He is also a amateur hobbyist ecologist and monster chef. This man has read the Monster Manual cover to cover, and it is his favorite book.
Good for him.
We all have to have hobbies.
But he's never actually implemented anything. He's very much theoretical. He is a doctor of philosophy.
Well, no, he's killed monsters all the way down to the lowest level. Like, he's very good at being a fighter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. He just hasn't gotten to pursue his true passion, which is cultivation. What happens if I turn the monsters into food?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Laos is going through some stuff because he just saw his sister eaten.
But I mean, it was only became more evident the further into the reading, because just looking at it on its head, I mean, they all encountered their various deaths through various means. His sister's consumption was relatively tame. It wasn't gory or anything. Still,
they saw.
And I think with what Matt's getting to, that's sort of why I got the impression that like the fact that they're treating death so casually is going to bite them at some point, because you can still be too far gone. Like, that's still a thing. Death is still a real and present danger. It's just there are ways around most of the obvious methods to get there. And
this is where we start getting into what will be the theme of the manga, because this manga does it's sort of an intersect of two different vibes. There's, the classic like late 2000s, early 2010s internet fridge horror classic of, man, wouldn't it be fucked up if Mario remembered dying and using a 1-up? Haha. I can't cite like exactly when this began, but it's an increasingly modern idea of like, what if the ecology and economy of fantasy worlds actually made sense? Because this manga takes it really seriously. Because when you're like playing Final Fantasy, nobody cares about like what it means that there's goblins outside town, or what the life cycle of a cactuar is, or where a tonberry works its ecological niche. And if you try to actually think about how the economy works in D&D, you'll go mad. It doesn't make sense.
Or in most RPGs. I mean, like, it's such a common RPG trope for monsters to just drop actual money. How?
Don't think it's not that deep, kids. Just keep moving.
But this manga does want to make it that deep. Like, early on, I wasn't feeling super captured by the manga during like the first volume, but mainly because it was doing a lot of that. I started getting more into it later on. We'll get to that in our review here, but I do think it is a very, very solid example of that sort of philosophy. The idea of just taking the fantasy world building that you're supposed to brush over in your mind really, really seriously.
Actually world build out the parts that don't matter and thus are usually ignored.
Mm-hmm. And that starts with them killing some mushroom men, because mushrooms are edible.
I do like that, and this wasn't done a lot, but I do like there is a bit where by the time the mushroom comes up is when you start realizing that Laos is not all there.
Yeah.
But despite the fact that he seems really way too keen on the idea of eating monsters, and it's starting to skeeve out his remaining party members, there is a bit where he's like he's trying to cut it up to prepare it to cook it. Mm-hmm. And he realizes, diagonal cut isn't working. The widthwise cut isn't working, but the fibers run lengthwise along the body. So if you're fighting one, always do an up to down cut, because that will get through it faster. Which, that is a cool moment. They do it a couple of times where it's like, oh, hey, here's the idiosyncrasies of the characters actually finding a thing that about the monsters that's like practical.
Mm-hmm. Also, Jake, I think you're underplaying how skeeved out the party members are. Marcel starts breakdancing. She is so skeeved out about the idea of eating the mushroom.
Which is so bizarre, because I'm just like, it's a mushroom.
No, don't wanna.
I'm just saying, even her elven sensibilities, this is a mushroom.
Well, her entire personality is complaining, so that's not entirely fair. There's more to her than that, but like that is it's her entire personality in the sense that that's all she ever presents to the world.
Yes, very much so, and I totally agree.
She has an internal life, but
I found myself trying to like fourth wall rationalize with this character. Just like, you are being too much right now. Calm down. It's okay.
That is a losing battle even on the other side of the fourth wall.
But yes, after capturing a giant scorpion to add to their dish and failing to prepare it very well, the group has attracted the attention of the best character.
He
Dwarf
goes,
friend.
dwarf friend.
Senshi, the dwarf gourmet.
I'm not gonna lie, oddly enough, Sam, Senshi reminds me of you.
Okay.
Senshi would be Sam.
Okay.
I think that's the compliment you think it is.
Jake's more of a weird hermit than I am.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. No. See, he can't be me because he actually cares about food.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there you have it, folks. According to Jay, if I ever get Isekai into a fantasy world, I'm just going to become a dungeon hermit cooking up monsters.
Yeah.
You know, when you put it that way, yeah, I kind of see it.
God
Yep.
damn it. Anyway, they make some hot pot out of the mushroom man and the giant scorpion.
In the middle of like a crowded like market too, and everyone's like, "What's going on there? That's weird."
Yeah, they're in the hub city of this MMO.
And they still get attacked by a slime. So
Yeah. This is where the sort of semi-cavalier attitude towards death started to get at me because like Marcel is yelling and ranting and complaining and they're saying her name over and over and it's like clearly they're trying to calm her down. No, they're trying to warn her because the slime drips out of the ceiling and sloshes over her face and starts suffocating her.
Oh, and there's a moment where it's like, well, I guess I'm dying now.
And apparently that was also how she died the first time. Because each and every one of these characters has died before.
At least once. I think pretty much all of them multiple times. Actually not sure about Senshi.
This is how they get some dried slime to add to their hot pot, because apparently that's a delicacy.
Yeah, and it makes me think because obviously this remains a prolific ingredient. It makes me, are they just supposed to be jellyfish? Like the consistency of jellyfish or something?
well, considering that he says slime has to be dried and stuff, and like he
You can
actually
have dried,
put
you can have dried jellyfish. That's actually why I'm asking, because it just seems like, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I was thinking it was supposed to be like konnyaku or something, like it kind of like a thick jelly.
Because a lot of the monsters end up becoming some sort of like real world counterpart to a normal food.
Yep.
Actually, one of my favorite examples in chapter 1 is the living armor, which is just scallops.
That one at least had a nice arc to it.
Yeah, but they have their hot pot, and Laos is over the moon because his dream has been realized. Dungeon cuisine, monster food.
Yes, in other words, this really stokes the fire to encourage him to continue on and eat more.
Oh, and he instantaneously loses the plot.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, it's still in the background, but it's also like, hey, all this food. Let's see what else we could eat.
Hey, it's been multiple days that I haven't. My sister's dead. Now it's just a matter of getting there.
I don't know if he accepts that she's gone because, like, every time that comes up, he's just like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, it takes however long for dragons to digest and, you know, they hibernate and, you know, we got time.
Yeah,
so.
Senshi kind of does say that the red dragon has like a month-long hibernation cycle because it's so big, it takes that long to digest food. So like it basically says they've got a month to get down there before she's excreted. But they're talking about a dead body. Like people just aren't saying that. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, even if your body was intact, you would suffocate. Just yes.
We've got greater restoration for that. It's fine. Is that the revive spell? I don't remember.
it's one of them.
One of them, yeah.
I don't play spellcasters enough.
But once Senshi learns what their quest is, he's like, you're going to slay the red dragon. Oh, I've always wanted to cook that. Should I turn it into steaks? Maybe ground beef, dragon burgers, or shabu shabu. And the entire time he's thinking aloud like this, the rest of the team has the sudden realization of the food chain.
Yes.
It's like
which starts off the running theme in this is Marcel going like, can we just not do cannibalism? Could we not do cannibalism, please? And that includes if a thing ate people, I don't want to eat that thing.
yes, I understand that when you think about it objectively, there's a lot of gross stuff that goes into food. I understand that when I'm eating a vegetable, I am eating something that ate poop. But can we not eat something that got its nutrients from a sentient being?
Meanwhile, you got Laos over there going like, so can we eat some kobolds?
How would you prepare a goblin? We are not eating demi-humans!
We really got to draw the line there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, Laos and Senshi are not willing to draw the line there.
They very much don't care.
I 100% believe Senshi's eating a dude.
Mm-hmm.
He would talk about it.
He would try long peg.
Yes.
The most dangerous game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't care for it. I don't know.
Who knows? But they enter the next layer of the dungeon, a more arboreal area where a bunch of trees have grown out of the spires of the old palace, and it's full of man-eating plants. So good opportunity to get some veggies.
Or fruits, I guess, is the main objective here.
Well, fruits or veggies, whatever they came across, and they just happened to come across fruits.
Mm-hmm.
And we start, my favorite long-running thing in this is Marcel's not allowed to do shit.
She is not.
No.
No. She is allowed to do something. She complains. That's a thing. It's not a useful thing. She's not allowed to be useful, but she does do stuff.
Well, to be fair, I mean, this is just because Senshi's weirded out by magic. He's just like, I just don't get it. I don't like it. No.
In this arc in particular, it's kind of the plot telling her she's not useful. I do appreciate in future arcs, it's just Senshi being a dick is the reason she's not allowed to do anything. Like,
the most she's allowed to do via the plot this early on is get attacked by the monsters in a way that makes you go, I don't like where this is going, but it stops.
It doesn't even really go that far. It's just she's grabbed to be eaten. Like, it's not, as far as tentacles go in manga, it's really tame.
No.
Tame.
Well, you see the tentacles going towards the female character, and you worry for a moment, and then it doesn't go there. And, honestly, for the tone of this series, we're okay with that.
The manga doesn't go there. Laos does. After he cuts Marcella down, he's just like, oh, yes, that particular plant is designed to grab up its victims and use its thorns to insert seeds under your skin. So it doesn't actually try to cause you any sort of distress. I imagine that getting caught by it would actually be rather pleasant. So how did it feel?
We are not talking about this literally ever again.
What the fuck are you saying to me? Just a look on her face.
Meanwhile, Laos tries to take the seed with him. Hey.
I want to see if I can plant it above ground. No, we are burning these.
Just the look on her face. That is a profile picture right there. I'll see that one popping up on Twitter.
But yeah, they make a nice tart out of all the fruits. After Senshi says, no, what are you going to do? Use magic? You'll blow away all the fruits.
Mm-hmm.
And the fruits have different properties based on what they are.
Yep.
I do like how every dish has a little stat chart of its various nutritional benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's also got like a full ingredient list, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. If you can find yourself some leftover giant scorpion soup, then you can make the start. We also have another delightful world building note here is that while they're busy fighting the man-eating plants, one of the Victory Bell looking motherfuckers vomits out another corpse, and they're like, looks like a corpse hunter. That's ironic. And this is where we learn that there is an entire industry of people that delve into the dungeon to find dead adventurers, haul them back up to people who can cast resurrection, and then charge them for the service.
And I really hate to be the person here who constantly complains about math not making sense, but I don't understand why you would have an industry about corpse hunters who find dead bodies and bring them back, and the going rate is 10 to 20% of what they were carrying. It seems like if you could choose to loot a body or carry a body back to town,
you could just loot the body.
it seems like 10 to 20% isn't enough, you know?
Well, you see, if everybody dies, then who's going down into the dungeon to get killed so you can scavenge their corpse?
I'm just saying, I think the numbers could work out to 10 to 20% being a bit higher. Probably a guild thing.
Probably.
They do mention an adventurers guild, so it's probably actually like the corpse hunters are paid by the guild, and that's just the going union rate, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not like you can negotiate prices with the
Respawn Union.
They don't have Speak with Dead in this.
Marcel has a nightmare about the about the dungeon food. She returns home and her mother's like, "I've prepared all your favorite foods for your birthday. Dig in." And it's this horrifying spread of disgusting little creatures made into soups and whatnot.
Yeah. And then they're up bright and early the next morning. They're like, "Well, time for breakfast." And I'm like, "Well, no, maybe you could just move on." Like, you guys, I get you're into eating dungeon monsters now. You're being really inefficient with dungeon delving to do this nonsense.
Yeah, like 2 short rests a day. Just keep moving, all right?
No, we're going to do a sub-boss where we got to go find a basilisk.
The
Why?
basilisk was the most interesting because obviously there's a lot of renditions of what a basilisk like manifests as. This is the most amusing.
I do like their basilisk lore.
Yes. Chicken and a snake, and guess which one is the actual tail?
They mentioned that the basilisk is the lord of snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I like because in this it goes very traditional where it's like a chicken. Oh, what's basilisk lore? Is a chicken that hatches a snake egg? Right?
Yeah.
And then that growing thing is a chicken that has the tail of a snake, but in this it has manticore rules. So the tail is the head of a snake. And then there's a whole thing where Laos goes on his like, well, technically in academic circles, it's actually been decided that the snake head is the real head and the chicken is the tail. And that's funny on its own. But then I really love that at the end of the volume, there's a bonus page where he's just like, it's actually really discussed in academic circles when they found out this by if you cut a basilisk in half, the snake head lives longer.
Mhm.
Then someone decided to say, well, yeah, if you chop your head in half, what side lives longer? Is that the real part of your face? The academic conference then resulted in a brawl. And I'm like, okay, so.
I'm also saying it kind of just like if you remember cat dog rules. Are we really going to argue that one is the tail and one is the tail and one's the head?
Yeah, like it's very clear.
Yeah.
I just remember when young Sam first learned to accept the reality of the cartoon was actually a cat dog moment where they had to go to the bathroom and
Yes.
wait,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Human centipede, Sam. It works like that.
Feline canine little cat dog.
Well, is this also supposed to be a play of the fact that, chickens will also eat snakes?
I think that's supposed to be like the original origin of like the basilisk.
Yeah,
But-
chickens will fuck up snakes for people who don't know.
Yeah. I also really like Laos in this because he's such a dork.
Yes.
Because he's like, I used to think that the more animals a chimera had mixed in, the cooler it was. But actually, when you think about it, the simplicity of the basilisk of just the chicken and the snake really allows the 2 individual animals to shine. You appreciate the rooster so much more because of it. And the others are looking at him like, you are so weird.
You are unwell.
How is this your response to the potential permanent death of your sister?
He's not thinking about it, is really the.
Yeah, he's hard coping by ignoring. And here we have the moment. I know this entire like second half of the back half of this chapter is supposed to be like a black comedy thing. I still don't know if it hit with me or not because the chapter opens with Marcel being jealous of a normal adventuring party and their normal rations for breakfast. And then that same adventuring party is chased down by a basilisk. Their fighter gets horribly injured and poisoned. Our heroes defeat the basilisk, but this man is still dying. And it's like, I'm sorry, we don't have any antidote. Actually, we do have some antidote. Oh, cool, give it to him. And then Senshi just sits down, drains the blood out of the basilisk, and goes, nay, the medicinal herbs taste much better when you cook them properly. And it's the entire freaking Food Wars cooking sequence. And every now and again in the background is this man dying and his companion crying over him. As Marcella's just like, all right, let's speed it up. Come on.
Yeah, Marcel and Laos are both kind of like, nope, we're hungry right now. We should eat right now. You sure it'd be better if we let it marinate overnight. I'm like, at this point, Senshi, what you meant to say is you could make an antidote, not you have one. If you never intended to do it, you dick. Like,
It's also an interesting contrast because it's another human fighter and elf spellcaster.
Maintaining fantasy stereotypes.
Well, no, this is the one moment where Laos is willing to speed Senshi along, and I can't help but feel he sees the parallels there. He's like, oh, if this happened to me, this idiot would let me die.
I also like how the antidote is just baked chicken.
Yeah, they just roasted chicken with some medicinal herbs in it.
So you could have just used the medicinal herbs. It's the thing, like...
Yeah, no reason at all not to.
Because they cut off the snake tail of the basilisk, and at that point, it's essentially just a giant rooster. Like...
I love Marcel and Chilchik. Chilchik's like, wait a minute, aren't these herbs supposed to be applied topically? What does eating them do? Don't question it. Don't ask.
No, it's worse. He says, I don't know.
True. Thankfully, this medicinal chicken does actually cure the man of his poison, and he is restored to health.
And also, it's so delicious.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, well, medicinal chicken is not unusual. Just, chicken noodle soup, chicken, whenever you feel crappy. Just chicken is like a staple.
Properties of chicken.
Yes. Not to be underestimated.
It's like the meats in Elden Ring cured in various medicinal herbs. But they do, in fact, save this adventuring party. And... well,
for a little while, anyway.
Only for them to immediately get killed, like KO'd. And the next...
This was the punchline. I wasn't sure if it hit me or not. Because, like... Senshi gives his entire Saitama speech of here's how you get stronger, you improve your eating habits, you rethink your lifestyle rhythms, and you get proper exercise, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, a 10-kilometer run every day.
And it motivates them so much they go off and do it, and that's like, that's not why they were good at this. Like, they're allowed to do all this nonsense because Laos is already like a 19th level fighter.
So these poor Lobi morons go off and get themselves killed by
the carnivorous plants.
And it's a black comedy bit. They're probably going to get found by the corpse hunters and respawn, but I just feel bad for them.
Oh, well, this is a universe to exist in, so there you go.
Yeah, we really are getting the like slice of life comedy nucleus in a fairly grim universe.
I don't know. How grim is it when you've got like an entire squadron of people that will come and res you for just like 10% of the money in your wallet, It's
kind of fridge horror-y, but
that's the thing about it.
You are right.
Like it's not so much the grimness that strikes me, it's if death was that easily solvable, people would be that cavalier about it, to the point where they would let people get too far to be revived. Like, people would stop caring and let tragedies happen that don't need to. Like, that's such a real, like, reaction to the situation. It's very much the case where, like, revival from death spells in a world like the Forgotten Realms, or pick your RPG that as revival, lore wise they're kind of built to be rare, but there is a level of, but the player has access to them because they're a mechanic in that game system, video, tabletop, what have you. So like you can just get those. And it makes them feel mundane. It makes them feel like you living or dying is just a resource to spend.
Why can't I use the Phoenix down on Aerith after the dead girl walking moment?
And it's like seeing a world of people who have for generations obviously lived in a world where revival from death is a mundane thing, yeah, they would kind of be like that. It's not good. And
I remember my first death. That was pretty traumatic.
And it's one of those ones where it's like, I feel like this is going to come up at some point. I feel like I'm not 100% sure, because boy, this does not take itself seriously to its benefit. But like, I feel like this is going to result in something bad eventually.
Before we can have that, we have to have Marcel desperately trying to be relevant to the plot.
Marcel's fight for relevance. Oh, this chapter.
I'm surprised you like this chapter, Jay, considering it talks about dog death.
I'm crying. I don't like this chapter. It talks about dog death.
Okay, it mentions it as a thing you could do. Like,
Oh my gosh.
You see, in order to pluck a mandrake, you have to tie a knot around the mandrake's top and then around a dog's collar and then have the dog run over to you. This will pluck the mandrake out and you'll be out of range of the scream. What happens to the dog? It dies.
this kills the dog.
And the worst part is the dog is so happy to like serve its master. It's just like, why you do this? I loved you.
Marcel is explaining this because mandrakes are used in like potions and stuff, so they have magical benefits. And everyone is just shitting on her. She's like, I learned this at mage school. This is how you do it. And everyone's just like, well, obviously that's super inefficient, Marcel. Why wouldn't you just use a really long rope? Like, your entire thing is stupid, and you're stupid for saying it. We're better than you, and Senshi over there is smarter than you. We're going to say this repeatedly.
I'm just saying, like, I fully believe she was just saying, this is written down in textbooks. Like, I didn't make this up. Not me.
They're so mean to her in this.
She kind of
Like,
storms off. She storms off because they're mean to her, going like, "No, they wouldn't have wrote down," because Senshi just pulls mandrakes out of the ground and cuts their head off before they can scream, and he's just like, it's so much more efficient to do it that way. She's like, they wouldn't write it in the textbooks if it was that easy. And I'm like, it's not that easy. That sounds like if you mess up slightly, you instantly die. Like, that doesn't seem like a better way.
One of Senshi's key character traits is this man does not blink. He constantly has the same like wide-eyed expression. So while it has not been explicitly said in our reading yet that he has died before, I get the feeling he's died a lot. This dwarf has been to Moradin's Forge so often.
So here's the thing. He really hates magic. Would he let himself
get revived? Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say.
We don't actually know how the revival magic works in this. Like, this obviously plays off a lot of the classic D&D rules, but does it actually have the stipulation of the soul must be free and willing?
Fair. So
you could be brought back outside of your will.
This is a bit of a tangent, and it's something that like gets offhandedly mentioned that I thought was so weird. Marcel and Chilchuck go on this like minor rant about how we don't even know if the soul exists. Except they had just explained that ghosts are souls that can't. Yeah. It's just a weird line where they're like, how can you even say that a soul exists? And it's like, well, no, hold on.
A ghost. It's a ghost. It's right there. It's attacking you right now.
You're bringing people back from the dead, assumes like. What a weird thing to say. You don't know a soul exists.
Yeah. Kind of threw me for a loop
because Laos's sister is a priest. Like,
yeah, you just have to read the world you kind of operate in. It's just like
that struck me as like modern Japanese nonsense fitting into this universe when it doesn't fill. It's like, yes,
yeah.
It's modern Japanese culture of like,
yeah, there's a few moments of that. It's like, why are all of Senshi's dishes,
very Japanese?
Very Japanese,
Well,
why are the tempura?
They explain that it's that's just dwarven style.
All right.
Well, I mean, it is a little strange that the European fantasy characters are all using chopsticks before Senshi shows up.
Yeah.
How about that? I mean, it's a manga. Of course they are. It's not a problem. It's just, yeah.
But
I do really like the resolution of this chapter because it's pretty funny. Marcel is so desperate to prove her method right that she sets up this incredibly convoluted thing of tying a rope to the root of a mandrake and then putting a lasso outside of the den of a bunch of giant bats, startling the bats. The bat flies out and it does what it said in her textbook. It rips the mandrake out.
Mm-hmm.
And the mandrake screams.
And it drives the giant bat crazy, which makes it spiral into kamikaze bomb her.
And then it dies.
At which point Senshi goes, hey, mandrake and some meat.
Then they end up making omelets out of the basilisk eggs they got.
Which are snake eggs, of course, because the head is... This is where we get the snake part is the head and the chicken part is the tail.
But apparently the mandrake that Marcel had gotten was much more flavorful.
When you think about it, makes sense, because her training was for what makes the thing most magically potent.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, it not being like stressed and like ruining it is clearly better for magical properties. As opposed to just like, I'm going to eat it like a tube vegetable. Like,
yep.
Mm.
Unfortunately, despite her victory, she is still left distressed at the end because Senshi says, since you showed me the error of my ways here, you can eat the head.
No.
Yes.
I don't want it.
So anyway, after this chapter, they go down to the next level. And because Marcel got just bullied relentlessly by mostly Senshi, but everyone else, this is when Chilchuck gets relentlessly bullied by Senshi. And no one really comes to his aid. And then the chapter ends with Chilchuck apologizing. I didn't like the meta of this chapter.
This chapter was... It tried to do that classic storytelling thing.
Oh, we're learning from each other. No, Senshi, you're just being an asshole.
Senshi doesn't learn anything. Like,
No.
He's just being a dick.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, but why?
Because
these people were nice enough to allow you to like join their party. Or perhaps he views it the other way around because he is the chef, you know.
Well, they're in my party, obviously.
Yeah.
That sounds like his mode of thought.
The whole thing is they're on like a traditional dungeon level, and there are floor traps, and Chilchuck, being the rogue halfling, is all about, I can detect traps really well. So he's going around being real subtle, going like, okay, you can step here, 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 and then it literally starts with Senshi going like, whatever, I don't really care. Triggers a trap that almost kills Chilchuck. Like,
Chilchuck even says out loud, hey, if you screw up, one who pays the price, listen to what I say, which is reasonable.
Nah, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Hey, wait, you said there's oil in one of these traps? Yeah, I was saying that. We can make fried tempura. Why would we do that? What, we have plenty of food. Nope, we're going to do my thing. And then they proceed to do Senshi's thing. And then the end of the chapter is like, wasn't this some good tempura? He's like, yeah, I guess I really learned that we're equals and that maybe you should teach me how to cook. What?
I
For him to want to be more careful and be like, this seems like a lot of work for very little payoff. Oh, the food was delicious, so that totally justifies, you know.
Well, because like what they needed to do was teach Senshi that he needs to be more careful around these traps. But all he learned was, I can use them to benefit me, and I'm still not going to be careful. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, just because you might be able to make the most delicious dish ever.
But if it kills me,
exactly.
Yeah, no, the story treats it as if Chilchuck is the one in the wrong, which he's very much not. And that's what the problem is.
And this is another example of them being weird about death, because it's like, we're so cavalier about death, we're so cavalier about getting revived, but also Chilchuck talks about how one time I got caught by a boiling oil trap. It was worse than dying instantly. And Marcel's just like, oh yeah, I remember watching that. It was awful. It's like, okay, so this is bad.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And this is actually like one of the big things whenever you have revival mechanics in any kind of like narrative or game. You're still experiencing death either way. Dying still sucks. It's still all of the pain you would experience in the process of dying violently still happens. So like
P.S. dying still sucks.
and that's sort of where a lot of the fridge horror in this series comes from, because like they're acknowledging the fact that yes, dying violently, you still experience it all. Like no part of it is truncated or eliminated for you. So people still have death trauma from when they get revived, but like, you know, it's one of those ones where it's like people are like, but that's an occupational hazard. And like, of course, people could acclimate to that, but you shouldn't, because it's still dying.
Speaking of people not acclimating to death trauma, the next arc, it is an arc because it's like 3 chapters of this. Laos has to deal with, they're going through the castle into like the royal room, where there is a bunch of living armors, which Laos reveals in a flashback was the cause of his first death. And he's got like a PTSD reaction to this. Like he is afraid of dealing with them. And also weirdly fixated on wanting to eat them, even though multiple people tell him, you can't eat metal armor. What are you, stupid?
You have to understand, it's an instinctual like ability to defeat them, get revenge, and absorb their power because they have wronged you in the most fundamental way.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I got the vibe that like this entire thing with Laos changing from I've always been fascinated with monsters to I want to eat all monsters is kind of like a trauma reaction from his sister being eaten by a dragon. Is kind of like why he's suddenly gung-ho about like, yeah, I'm gonna eat all the monsters. It's like, I'm trying to reclaim power after this horrible thing I just witnessed, like my sister who I love dearly being treated like food. Well, now this entire dungeon is going to be my food.
Yeah, because he does get progressively crazier over the course of our reading. There's not much to argue, but in the beginning, he seems significantly more put together to the point where he does the responsible thing of, it was my mistake, I'll put myself in danger, I don't want you guys to get hurt. Like that's a much more traditional fighter / tank of the party like character trait that he summarily drops later.
Yeah, because as they enter a hallway, they notice that his sword has been damaged and it's lost an ornament on it, and they ask if it was some sort of memento. And he's like, I guess you could say that. And we get a flashback of him in Phelan's first adventure, where pretty early on, because this dungeon's only been open for a handful of years. And in the early days, the dungeon walls, like the walls of the castle, were all coated in gold. So a pretty early expedition style was to go down there and strip the walls of gold and come back up to the surface and sell that. So they were part of one of these groups. And they got into a fight with some living armor.
It was the first time anyone in that group had gotten that far, because a lot of the walls higher up had been stripped, so they're going into deeper parts. And some of the people stripping the walls, they're not warriors, which the two of them are actually concerned about. It's like, if something bad finds us, we're probably not going to live through this. That's what they have revives for. And they see a hall filled with armor, so it's like, I wonder if we can sell these. Stab.
Guy just gets shanked through the neck. It's brutal. So we have a quick fight where Laos and Phelan are dealing with an attacking armor. He manages to swipe the sword that he's been using for the rest of the manga off of one of the armors and behead.
Well, he had his own sword, but the armor breaks it. And is honestly a really cool moment for him where like he picks up another sword and is able to, like one of the other armor swords, and is able to, like, if it was a normal guy in a suit of armor, he would have won. He lopped the thing's head off, but it just stays standing and stabs him. So it's honestly a pretty cool moment.
He's like, and this is the sword from that day that I died. Yeah, so seeing any...
And he says out loud, I have trauma about it, but we're not going to talk about it because all of us are really desensitized to death.
Even just looking at a suit of armor gave me PTSD.
But yeah. So basically the whole thing about this is this room is a whole bunch of suits of living armor, and normally they work like proximity mines where if you get too close to one, they like activate and come after you. But for some reason, this hall's behaving differently, and all of them are swarming at once. So
and blocking the exit door.
Mm-hmm. And that's a whole thing about like, yes, the mage who's controlling them must be behind that door. And Laos is really gung-ho on that's not how this works. Because trauma, I guess, is the reason. But like
he wants the living armors not to be magical constructs, but a creature he can eat. I think probably for the reasons, Matt, that you mentioned of like it being some way to reclaim power over something that traumatized him.
Yeah. And also because Marcel can't have anything, she goes real hard about like, well, no, they're clearly armor animated by magical means. We just need to shut off the form of magic. And it's just like, no, Marcel, you're stupid. I'm not going to listen to you. You're not an expert on anything. I'm going to go hit things with my sword and eat them. And then he goes into the back room and it turns out they're spiders. Which isn't true, but...
Well, clams.
Clams. Or oysters or whatever. But
they also have an egg sac, and that's a little like...
Yeah.
I'm just saying, just like how harsh everyone is being to Marcel.
They are so unnecessarily mean to her.
You know, it's very much the case with Marcel where, here's the thing. Strictly speaking, by how her character reacts to things, she deserves it. But the thing is, there's so many cases where I could see the hand of the author making her wrong. Like,
I don't... It's when they bring up specifically magic nonsense that she should be an expert in because she is a high-level caster. She made it to the bottom floor. And then for the author just to go, well, no, that's stupid. That's not actually how this works. And I'm like, that doesn't... How would no one know this was how this works, though? Because, like...
Somebody is going to have had to, like, examine one of these things before this point. Laos figuring it out is pretty freaking cool. I like the
it's interesting, yeah.
The moment where he's like, wait a second, it had a shield, but it moved it out of the way so I could hit the body instead. It body blocked for its own shield. And like that, like how he starts to figure out like what's really going on. You know, and like the somewhat puzzle boxy, you know, fight he gets into over the course of it. Cool. I liked it.
Yeah. And then the big reveal that when a piece of armor comes off, he's just like, well, it really is empty. I guess I can eat it. Wait a second. There's a gap in the side. Shoves a sword in, pries it open. Oh, yep, they're clams.
Yeah, so the living armors are like scallops that exist between the plates of armor that animate them as like a colony.
Yeah, a colony of like...
They open the shell and like link up their little scallop legs. So like when you cut a head off, for example, they just let go of each other to not get damaged. Another cool moment is when he realizes, wait a second, if they're just magical constructs that have like blind sight, they shouldn't have to look at you to know you're there.
Why do they reattach their heads?
But anyway, once he gets that done, he has a lot more confidence and basically takes it apart one by one and pries open the individual mollusks. Senshi comes over, is like, oh, they're shellfish? Well, we can do some stuff with that. Basically makes a dwarven stir fry and then leaves the helmet to steam in the shell. And then does like basically what you do with
like an oyster.
Yeah, you'd cook it like an oyster. Like basically it boils in the shell over the fire.
There's a neat bit where he's like, I didn't know that was how these worked. I don't know what cooking techniques to use. Let's experiment. And like some of them like they work to varying degrees as opposed to...
My favorite part is when they put the one to steam in the shell and they're like, ooh, yeah, that looks tasty. And they're like, nope, this tastes like the inside of a helmet. This was a terrible idea.
I don't know how this thing has like a helmet head stench baked into it, but it works. It does, and it's gross.
So when they explain how the monster works, they don't explicitly say it, but I think what must be happening is these are mollusks that have learned to live inside abandoned suits of armor, not that they are mollusks that grow into suits of armor.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like a crab situation.
It's a hermit crab. Yeah, they're hermit crab shells. The suits of armor were made for the kingdom, and these creatures just appropriated them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is why the inside of the helmet smells sweaty, because someone was using this before.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, because I wonder how that would help with costs, labor costs, obviously.
Tame these things as like robot soldiers.
Yes.
That would actually probably work because they like they are like proximity mines, like they would be an autonomous guard.
I gotta say, big compliments to this manga. Like when it gets down to actually trying to think about how the world building works, it comes up with some fun monsters.
Yeah, really thinking out of the box.
The brass tacks of the world building is really cool. We also learn that they in the bonus chapter we learn that these creatures reproduce in the lewdest fashion imaginable.
By holding hands.
When the armors hold hands, it's not a prank. They're breeding.
And the only reason it's gross to us is just think of how many hands you've touched. Yes.
I don't want to think about that. I'm not going to think about that.
Yep. Dirty hand touching.
But also, the most important thing about this is as they're walking away, Laos notices the sword he picked up.
Because once again, his sword was broken and he needed to steal the armors.
Mm-hmm. The living armor's sword, as he's walking away, 2 little eye stalks pop out of the hilt, and he's like, well, not telling my team about this because I feel guilty for the massacre we just did. Or he wants to eat more of them in the future. It's really hard to tell.
Well, okay, so his method of actually getting rid of them is he like kicks the shield with the egg sac out the hallway so that they'll chase it. He eats this one.
Yeah, the big Royal Knight one.
He wants the egg sac to hatch so there will be more of them in the future to, continue having a supply to cook and eat. Mm-hmm. As for the one in his sword, I think he wants to keep it as a pet. I think.
Or a snack. Those mean the same thing to him a lot of the time. So
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's concerning, but yeah.
On that note, he has now got a little pet snack. So I think everyone's got a little time to go grab a little pet snack of their own as we take a little break here.
No judgment, except all the judgment.
A lot of judgment.
Yeah, I'm going to judge you.
We'll judge you if you eat your cat. We'll be right back.
A sweet home up in here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Overmanga Cast. We're back from the break.
And where last we left our heroes. God, what food had they made? Oh, right, the living armor scallops.
Yes.
Yes, they had discovered that living armors are basically mollusks and made some seafood out of them, which I appreciate.
Don't steam them because it'll taste like head sweat.
So they continue to dive deeper into the dungeon. And this is actually one of my favorite chapters, both from like a character revelation standpoint and also just a fun world building thing. Because we have reached layer 3 of the dungeon, also known as the place Senshi does the most squatting. Because this is where he has his hidden base. And
his hidden toilet.
Mm-hmm. Well, the toilets aren't very hidden. what he does with them.
That was... I also just had to marvel with the fact that I love that this was a conversation, because this is something that has popped into my head with many dungeon crawlers. Like, where do you pee? Other than the corner.
Jay, I've always appreciated this, and as a occasional dungeon master myself, I always appreciate it when dungeons have bathrooms.
I'm just saying, like, the fact that there's like an actual conversation about, no, there's a designated, room. It's not a hole in the ground. Yeah, we have a bathroom.
It's a sanitation concern.
Yeah.
It'd just be gross otherwise.
I know. We better make sure we don't get shit in places it doesn't need to be. Meanwhile, there are rotting corpses walking around on this level.
Yes, this is the undead level. Senshi has bunkered down here as his base, but he does most of his farming and hunting on layers 4 and 2 because that's where the actual edible things are. There is one important exception, that being the golems. The golems, which are made mostly of mud and dirt and whatnot, actually make for great vegetable patches because they're basically walking, self-defending plots of land.
Yeah.
God, I love the brief span of pages where said she turns into a libertarian.
Because Marcel comes in and go like, "Hey, you can't reanimate golems. That's against the law." And I'm like, "You're in a dungeon. What?"
Marcel and Chilchuck, both of them are just like, isn't it super illegal to tamper with golems? You need to like pay reparations to the original golemancer or whatever. And he's like, why?
And I'm not sure whose side I'm supposed to be on.
Because like it's not like there are any other laws in this dungeon. Like,
yeah,
they're currently looting things, but apparently we have laws that you can't reanimate golems.
Well, it's because there's magic laws and stuff, but of course, only Marcel like really knows any of these, and it's just like, you gonna narc on me? Like, what?
And also that's theoretically on the surface where, screwing with somebody's golem is like messing with the security system that a wizard would have. We're down in the ancient dungeon where presumably the wizard that first animated these died 1,000 years ago. But that's not the argument Senshi has. Senshi's argument is, I don't like magic.
Yeah, he repeats that a lot, despite using magic golems.
Damn knife ears.
God damn it, Grandpa, you can't say that. But like he repeats the I don't like magic, and then people point out golems are magic. What's your answer to that? And his answer is a very long ellipsis. This never gets brought up again. It's weird.
Well, no, his answer is I found a way to use them for my own purposes.
Like all people who use magic do.
You don't understand. Magic makes you weak. You forget how to do the complicated things in life. You're basically doing the same thing as buying vegetables from a store if you're going to start a fire with your magic. And I'm like, no, that's not the same thing at all.
I just realized somewhere between the panel of him explaining how he doesn't like magic and them going to harvest the crop from the golems, he puts on a farmer's hat, except he doesn't take his horned helm off.
Yeah.
He shoves the horns of the helm through the farmer's hat.
It made sense.
As you do.
You gotta get into character, and this is his way of, Yeah.
I'm not saying I think Senshi is right. I'm saying I think he's based.
And that's why Senshi is Sam.
Not right, but based.
The more we talk about this, the more...
I don't like magic, but I'll exploit it to my own ends. You know what? You might be right. Anyway, he very efficiently takes out the magic animating cores of these golems, which allows him to harvest the vegetables that have been growing in their backs, as well as till the soil and replant new crops. He understands crop rotation. He's very efficient about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. He's got his fertilizer. He knows how this works, which also ties into the bathroom conversation later. But yes.
Yeah. We've researched the crop rotation text, so we must be in the Imperial Age.
Mm-hmm.
I love how Marcel is so happy at the idea of actually eating real vegetables again. She's like, oh, thank God.
She's really defensive of these vegetables.
And then, like, she gets her, like, typical reaction when she's finding out, like, wait, you've been fertilizing them with the outhouse remnants? And then Chilchuck has to go, like, you know that's how crops are grown on farms, right?
Oh, fresh manure, yes.
Yeah, but it's easier to not think about on the surface. You're really splitting hairs about this.
Yes, I believe that this is another instance where Marcel, like, she deserves some reality checks here.
To be fair, she does immediately drop it. Like,
yeah.
But between her going to use the restroom and then while they're waiting for dinner to their simmered cabbage soup to finish, Senshi goes to the restroom and she's like, wait a minute, why do you have buckets? Oh, that's what the fertilizer is.
A bit more of a serious moment where Laos asks Senshi, it's like, okay, you're just doing normal like farming and hunting stuff. Couldn't you do this on the surface? Senshi has well, somebody's got to take care of the dungeon, and I enjoy being here, so this is the best place for me.
I mean, if I don't take care of it, then monsters from downstairs are going to take over, and then everyone's going to be like, hey, this isn't the environment we left behind. I'll tell you what. Senshi, I'm going to be honest here, but
these golems are an endangered species. There used to be 10 of them. Now there's only 3. And okay, dude, you're being selfish. We understand. You don't need to justify it.
We're all selfish here.
Senshi, I get it. This currently benefits you. You're stopping the dungeon from getting more dangerous, but like kind of not. He's portraying it as if he is the lone person keeping this from like falling apart, but like there's dozens of adventurers coming through here constantly, so
it would probably be fine anyway.
Like we still haven't reached like where people stop regularly traveling down.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be like a plot brewing of something weird is happening deeper in the dungeon, but like not only did we not get there, this is such a fluffy episodic thing that just occasionally dovetails into fridge horror. I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere.
But anyway, after all that eating, they've still got like a crap ton of vegetables. And it's like, yeah, I basically picked them all because I wasn't sure if I'm ever going to come back this way or like how long we'll be gone hunting this dragon. So I took all of them, but they're just going to go bad and they're really bulky to carry. So it really wasn't a good idea. Well, what do you normally do with them? Well, normally I used to sell them at this little like roadside food stand where like I'd keep them out there and people could put money on a chest, but people kept stealing money from the chest. And then my favorite reaction panel of
Chillcheck saying, "Oh, so that's why there was always money in the chest."
Well, yeah, Chillcheck and Marcel both going like, "Oh no, that's why that chest we always had money in it when we came by here."
And like it's great because they genuinely seemed like they feel bad about it. Like, oh, that wasn't some magic nonsense. We were just stealing from this guy who's our friend now.
I thought it was just a money chest.
I love it so much.
Like they seem genuinely guilty about it. Like they legitimately didn't mean it and wouldn't do it now.
And you're like, Senshi's really on the up and up. He really deserves the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure nothing will happen in this chapter that will make you deeply regret ever considering giving him the benefit of the doubt.
This chapter gets weird, man.
This chapter.
This is another chapter where the moral feels lost.
This is a chapter that has some tonal dissonance in it. Like
they go to like meet with Senshi's vegetable buyer, and they go into this seedy, well,
it's not his usual buyer. It's because the usual buyer is a floor away and they can't carry all the vegetables that far. They go to the Thieves Guild, and it's basically the Thieves Guild. Instead, there's a whole thing about we don't know what barter is. Okay.
Yeah, the owner of this establishment is so
an idiot.
Ridiculously combative of like, what do you mean? I want gold. It's just like, I'm not giving you gold for this vegetables. And I'm like, yeah, but you sell food here. Clearly you could have like different types of food you'd trade for fresh produce. No, I only want other things. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then it doesn't matter because we barely get any exposition here before they're getting kicked out and someone gets stabbed through the back. And then a bunch of orcs come in and be like, yeah, we're orcs. Kill everyone with a weapon. And then they proceed to kill everyone with a weapon until one of the orcs sees Senshi and goes, oh, wait, no, I know you, bud. Hey, is that what you're doing now? Don't kill those 4. But do kill everyone else with a weapon.
Well, no, Matt, specifically, it's start with anyone that has a weapon, but don't leave a single one alive.
And by the end of this party is so morally gray. They're just having a casual conversation.
Whilst we see people getting stabbed to death and spraying blood everywhere.
And in all fairness, they do become hostages. They don't become hostages until the end of this very casual conversation they're having as people are murdered in front of them.
Yeah, like the most shocked Louse is he goes, I thought orcs were deeper in the dungeon. Why are they up here?
Oh, they're sure doing a lot of murders against those tavern wenches.
Man, look at all those innocents getting stabbed.
I'm sure there's a nuanced morality play based on this.
Bit weird that they're this high up.
Yeah. Long story short, the Red Dragon that is the primary quest TM,
ostensibly the BBEG.
Yeah, seems to be on the move,
and it's driven the orcs higher up into the dungeon.
The party only becomes hostages once. So hey, you want to buy some vegetables? No, we're not going to buy the vegetables.
We'd rather just take them.
And then they were just going to leave Senshi and the party alone in this like building full of corpses and take the food. But Senshi's just like, hey, hold on. You've got food. Let's make a trade. You let us stay in your camp for the night, and then we can say like we got even Steven. And he's just like, that's weird. And the party's just like, you just want to eat orc food, don't you? And he's like, shut up.
No, I don't want to eat orc food.
I want to make
that
bread.
Guy found yeast. I want to make bread.
So anyway,
Senshi.
They're taken as hostages into orc camp, and then they are put in literally like a playpen. They have
it's weird.
And again, Marcel is not allowed to have anything because all the orcs look at her and go, ew, an elf. How gross. Look at how ugly she is.
I mean, that's not even the problem, though, because they try and make this morality play where Marcel's the bad guy.
Yeah, calling her ugly is the start of it. Pretty soon, Marcel and the chieftain get into this like chapter-long argument about whose fault the generational cycle of violence is.
And it's just like, well, you made our orcs go down into the graves. Yes, because you were ravaging and murdering people. Yeah, but you pushed us down. What? No, hold on. You haven't answered the first part of that.
Again, why you gotta ravage and murder people? People tend to not like that.
It was the only way we could survive, driven into the caves. Well, you wouldn't have been driven into the caves if you didn't raid all those villages. And then you poured oil in the caves and lit them on fire because you kept raiding.
You kept doing murders. Do we want to bring up this chapter starts with you doing a bunch of murders for no reason? Like
we don't bring that up again. We don't bring up the fact that they...
Except this chapter is so melodramatic. It's just like, you see how the indigenous orcs were forced off their land. I'm like, but that's not what's happening. And there's a little baby orc who's just like, Daddy, I'm so glad you came home from work. And he's just like, yes, my loving son who has never done anything wrong. Can you believe these ugly elves? And so then the elf is just like, hold on. I'm sure you're a kind and generous man because I don't want to make this child think ill of its father, despite the fact its father is saying I am solely responsible for the murders he committed.
Meanwhile, Senshi's just like making bread.
He is literally ignoring everything that's going on. You know, I think the idea is supposed to be like both sides are equally at fault, but when you consider the sequence of events in this chapter,
it's clearly supposed to be like no one side is truly responsible for like a cycle of violence, and it's people have to like put aside their differences eventually and just come to even terms. Except the cycle is
supposed to be.
The cycle of violence is at this point literally 2 hours old after they massacred a bar full of people. Like, the wound is still fresh, and they have shown no signs of remorse.
The cycle of violence is stupid, and you should break it. That's what the moral's supposed to be.
Seems like at least the orc child, seems to see through some of the father's malice. He's like, but these seem pretty nice.
Yeah, and then it is ended by the fact that Marcel decides to lie to the kid that like dad wasn't just going to steal their food. Obviously, we're going to all have a big meal together. And then the chieftain is just like, what do you mean? It's just like, yeah, because your dad's an honorable man of his word and would never break a promise. And he's just like, God damn it, you understand how my fucking orc honor culture works.
You're
I
right.
would never be called a liar.
even if I didn't make that promise, you convinced my kid that I made that promise, so I will honor it.
He made the promise in like fucking fairy logic of like the exact words you said.
Yeah, it's a weird chapter.
They also just make bread and some other dough-based things like that.
The whole time this is going on, Senshi is acting like this is a completely normal chapter, like does the Food Wars thing of explaining how to do the thing, whilst this very strange argument is going on in the background, and then Laos and Chilchuk are just standing there like, this is awkward. I'm gonna keep quiet right now.
Yep.
And meanwhile, here's the audience just sitting over here like, I'm gonna keep quiet right now.
I don't know. It's mostly the melodrama seems at like the middle of it. It's being played straight and it really doesn't deserve it. And also with just how cavalier they've been with like death and eating sentient things before, this isn't the party to care about this either. So like...
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, not for nothing, there is a level of casualness to like Marcel's, because like there's obviously like the elf orc racism thing going on. Her hatred doesn't seem to run that deep.
Her hatred seems to literally be, stop doing the murders.
Why are you being hypocritical about this? You're just killing people.
Yes, but you don't understand. Your people have... Stop the murders.
Just stop killing people and there wouldn't be a problem here.
But we live down here in the Swallows because you did murders.
Consequences, and you keep doing those actions.
Oh no, the inevitable consequences of my actions. Yeah, no, it is weird. Yeah, they move on from this, and it doesn't really come up again. They get a clue to where the red dragon probably is or was last spotted.
They also bring up the whole point of this dungeon where the Gold King said, "Whoever takes my throne will rule my kingdom," and they're like, what, you humans are just going to take over the last place we have left? Gross. And then Marcel very reasonably goes, well, you guys are really strong. Why don't you just take the throne? No, for reasons.
Yeah, seriously.
That seems like that would solve all your problems. Well, you dungeon boy, when you take the throne, what are you going to do? And he's just like, I haven't really thought about it yet. Well, think about it. What kind of king will you be? And I'm still sitting going like, no, Orc Chieftain, you should go become king of the dungeon. Like
that's the logical conclusion here. You seem pretty powerful, Orc Chieftain.
This seems like this would solve your problem.
Like, these guys aren't slouches when it comes to adventuring. You were able to take them hostage.
It's not like the king said only a human can become king of my kingdom. It was whoever owns the throne. Like
whoever kicked the Dark Wizard's ass.
It's the implication there.
You're saying Orc Chieftain might have some learned helplessness?
Yes.
Clearly an orc could never defeat the Dark Wizard.
Yeah, obviously.
Look, this isn't the movie Bright, okay?
Who do you serve, Saruman? Anyway, we have the next chapter starts off with a side group going to do some adventuring. It does that thing where it spends a long time building up a decently, I don't want to say a long time, but a decent amount of time building up these secondary side characters and then immediately killing them.
This is a clever trap, you know, because I mean, like, mimics are old hat. I'm sure we'll see a mimic at some point in the story. So, like, this is like a new like take on like the mimic concept of it looks like this party died fighting over this treasure, and turns out, I mean, technically they were fighting, and treasure was involved.
Because they wiped out some zombies, they found a treasure box, they opened it, it was full of jewels and gems and coins, and isn't this great, what a windfall. And then our main characters find all their corpses.
Because it turns out that the treasure is bugs.
Yeah.
And bugs are delicious.
And nutritious. Plenty of nutrition.
And also, despite the fact the idea of eating monsters in the dungeon was completely foreign to everybody before this, we do get some lore here that treasure bugs are actually a delicious snack that people love on the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah, gee, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's Chilchuk specifically who is aware of this culture, but still, it raises the question.
Some of these bugs are pretty gross, like the pearl necklace that's actually a centipede.
Saying, like, I understand what they're going for of like a lot of in fantasy they'll have like, oh, these jewels or whatever, they're actually enchanted or whatever, but think of an actual centipede to look like pearls. Ew.
I love it because like as the treasure bugs start attacking, Marcel isn't immediately aware of it. She's examining another one of the corpses, and the pearl necklace becomes the centipede, and she's just got this wide-eyed look, and then flash! she panic casts an AoE stun that knocks out all the monsters.
I don't care what size the room is. I cast fireball.
Well, no, everybody's like, thank God she didn't cast fireball.
Yeah. That was a panic cast. Fight or flight.
It was power word stun, not circle of death. Count your lucky stars. One of the important things, though, is that Laus was the first one to realize that they were treasure bugs, not through any knowledge of his own, but because his sword, you'll remember the living armor scallop sword, started freaking out at the sight of them. And he still decides, nah, I'm not going to tell everybody.
They make treasure bug sandwiches, and
yeah, they quickly become distracted, turning the treasure bugs into candy. Coin bug crackers, pearl centipede skewers, gem bug jam.
Gem jam. All right. I'd buy it. I'm not kidding. I would buy it.
Same, honestly.
Honestly, if it looked like that and actually spread like jam, how could you not?
Marketing, folks.
And I love the final gag where it's like, hey, so you said that these inedible ones, we can throw them out, right? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, throw them out if you want. Yeets it off of a banister into the abyss.
It takes a while for it to connect. The inedible gems.
Hey, how did you know that they were inedible anyway? Are they poisonous? Well, yeah, you can't eat actual coins. That was real treasure!
That was real money, guys!
Tell us sooner next time.
My favorite part about this too is the volume bonus extra about this chapter, where they then find out that collectors on the service will pay basically gem price for these beetles for like collecting, like on a board or something.
Think about people who like exotic pets. Like, heck yes.
Or insect collectors.
Yeah, there's a market out there, guys.
We continue right in. They're in the same area, and a chill falls over the area, so that means ghosts. And unfortunately, you can't eat ghosts.
Or can you?
No, you actually can't.
Or can you?
Look, this is the one thing Laus doesn't try to eat, so...
We actually do get a bit of characterization for Laus here, because as it turns out, Phelan really good at dealing with ghosts because she was a cleric.
Why would we hurt the ghost unnecessarily? The ghosts are just people too, trying to live their lives. It'd be mean to cause them pain.
If we destroyed them, they would just reform, and it would be unnecessary suffering. Much kinder to simply banish them from the possessed corpse. Although one thing I do like here is, Marcel uses her explosive wizard magic to destroy a spirit, and Laus is like, why don't you use like more low-key magic, the kind of thing that Phelan did? You thought what she did was low-key and simple? You magic illiterate numpty, she's a high-level cleric. I am a wizard. These are two different
We
things.
are not the same. Do we just all look the same to you?
All you spellcasters look alike.
Honestly, that sounds like something that Senshi would say.
Yes.
Speaking of Senshi, he has to step up and create holy water, I guess.
Yeah.
This is simultaneously clever, funny, and really f***ing stupid.
It's really stupid that it works. Because he's essentially like, well, when you think about things that are holy by different religions, you got salt, gonna put a little bit of that in there. And some religions really like alcohol as offerings to the gods, so we're gonna put some of that in there. Sugar is kind of like salt, so I'm gonna put a crap ton of that in. What?
That's what lost me, because I'm just like, what? It's kind
Golden beetles, like those treasure bugs.
What?
the non-denominational holy water.
He just makes soup and puts it in a jar and starts smacking ghosts with it.
A nice jar of interfaith holy water wrapped up in cordon rope, but don't worry, in a jam you can use regular rope. And yeah, it turns into a mace, basically, like he's whipping around like a flail.
And I love there is a moment where it's like, Senshi, is any of this going to work at all? I don't know. Anyway, bonsai!
And then it's the most effective thing that's ever been used against ghosts. We were just saying you should avoid hurting them earlier. And then these ghosts are just murdered.
This drives me mildly crazy as a Dresden Files fan, because yes, any holy symbol could work, but that's because you believe in that particular holy symbol. He's just dumping every holy symbol he can think of.
You see, Sam, that's because you don't understand Dungeon Meshi. Senshi thinks everything is stupid, and he matters more than anything else. So clearly, every religion is only partially right, and Senshi's the most right, because he picked what their stupid religion thought was what you needed, and grabbed the only valuable part, and put it all into one big can of Senshi juice.
That's true faith right there.
Never ever say that again. I don't want the Senshi juice, please no.
But it turned into sorbet because we can't go 5 minutes without making...
Because ghosts are cold.
So it froze the non-denominational holy water into a slush slurry.
And because he's spinning it like a flail, that's like how you churn ice cream. So it's like...
Yup.
And it's a delicious sorbet.
Mm-hmm. You know, this entire time, Laos is having a sort of crisis where he's like, man, if only Phelan were here, we could have dealt with this so easily. We're so helpless without her in situations like this. This sucks. And he does have a genuine character building moment of, maybe I should stop moping about my sister's loss, and instead I should try to grow from this challenge. I can't replace her entirely, but I can try and step up and, become stronger for it. And then his dumbass opens his mouth and he tries to verbalize the moral as the silver lining. And he says, man, if Phelan was here, we wouldn't have had this sorbet.
For freaking sorbet.
And like,
what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, you fucked up when Senshi has to go like, oi, I think you overstepped a social boundary there, kid.
Aye, lad, sometimes you need to be having those inside thoughts inside. And he's just crying like, please hurry back, Phelan. I am lost without you. Bless his heart, he's trying, but he's not very good. But then we have my other favorite chapter, where we have it is a good joke and its backstory, because they've just been snacking on candy all day. That's not a good meal. That's not healthy.
That's not a balanced diet.
You try telling 7-year-old me that candy is not a balanced diet, and we have some words there.
Or you try telling 30-year-old me that you can't just snack all day and call it a meal. Current Sam will do that. But, it's true. We need to have an actual meal. Unfortunately, this is still the undead layer. And right now we might be in a dining hall, but it's just full of Scooby-Doo paintings.
Speaking of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, no,
Leos literally reminds me of Fred Jones, and I just can't.
Oh my God, you're right.
You're right. Oh no.
Oh, they're gonna split up and look for clues. Oh my God, he is literally just Fred Jones. Does that make Marcel Daphne?
No, Jake. They're gonna split up and look for foods.
Oh my God.
So this is Scooby-Doo, where he gets the genius idea of, hey, I hungry. Maybe, just maybe,
I can make paintings.
The problem is that makes Senshi both Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. And Shaggy and Scooby-Doo both have to constantly tell Daphne she isn't working and shouldn't even be here.
Oh God, that's like a Velma.
You're right! That's true!
No.
This is too accurate. I'm not.
Anyway, anyway, Super Mario 64. Am I right? Am I right, gamers? Linus has the great idea of, hey, if we get sucked in by the living painting, that lady has grapes in that painting. Surely I can take those grapes.
Sure.
As it turns out, he cannot take those grapes. We have every possible variation of no, this was stupid.
I love how the very first thing Marcel says is, no, that's stupid. That's not how magic works. And no one listens to her.
Mm-hmm.
To continue the trend, yes, no one listens to Marcel or tells Marcel that she's stupid.
To be fair, she is right this time.
Uh-huh. But Senshi is willing to entertain this idiocy. So he ties a rope around Laius and is like, all right, lad, go in, and when you send the signal, we'll pull you out. And he's like, okay, this painting has lots of food in it. I'm not going to pay any other attention to the scene. I'm just going to yeet myself right in.
And then we get 3 rounds of exposition about the castle lore. Like it's literally just...
Yeah, which I really liked. We actually got to learn something about the lore of the universe. Like the first painting he jumps in is the birth of the prince.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second where he's not able to get any of the food because he's like, it just doesn't feel right to steal food from this happy scene, from this happy family. So he jumps into the next painting, which is the prince's wedding. And he's like, oh, but before I could eat any of the food, the king got poisoned. So I think I should just go.
In both cases, a little gremlin was just kind of wandering around.
A little gremlin, an elf.
I don't remember her in the first painting.
No.
She's reclining on the arm of the sofa playing a lute.
Yeah, I missed that because Laos mentions that she's there in all 3, but yeah, I figured I just missed her.
He androgynous elf. You can't tell with them.
Grandpa, you can't say that.
That feels weirdly progressive, but also hateful at the same time.
Because it's about elves.
I'm just saying, gender is a spectrum, and also those stupid elves are all over it.
But it seems like Laos strikes gold on the third painting, which is...
well, the second one, what goes wrong is the mood is ruined, so he tries to take the food out of the painting, but that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The food disappears when he leaves.
Which
because it's freaking painting food.
Which should probably tell him what happens next, but he doesn't put 2 and 2 together to make 4.
Well, Marcel also explains to him, see, I told you this is what's going to happen. You could eat it and it wouldn't matter. It only exists in the painting world.
See, like I said, Fred Jones. He's not too bright.
He thinks he strikes gold by jumping into the third painting, which is the princess coronation. He lands at the feast and starts stuffing his face, and he's like, ooh, delicious meal. I even had seconds. This is wonderful. He's like, all right, time for me to get out of here. I can let the others know. They can come in and eat their fill. And the elf that was in the other 2 paintings walks up to him, grabs him by the collar, and goes, You were at the prince's birth. You were at the prince's wedding. You haven't changed. It's been years. You're an outsider. Who are you? What are you? And his armor starts catching on fire. I am going to burn you, outsider.
Damn, I'm just saying that elf is on his case. Elves don't forget.
But that's the crazy thing, because why is there continuity for the characters in the paintings?
Well, they don't seem like they're part of the painting either.
So it's either that the elf isn't part of the painting, or it's that the paintings aren't discrete moments in time, but actually windows into the past, like moments in a timeline.
Which also, the volume extra for this chapter is insanely dark.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah.
The manga isn't interested in confirming either of those. The only thing that matters is that Laos gets pulled out and his stomach is immediately empty again. That's the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm. And then we get the volume extra for this chapter, which is Laos going like, well, hold on. Before we go off on, I have one more thing I want to try. If I can't eat the painting, maybe painting me can eat the painting. And Marcel's just like, please don't. This is a well-studied thing in magic. You really don't want to do this. Nah, gonna draw a little doodle me in the painting. And he's just like, and then we see Doodle Laos go like, hey, Marcel, it's great. I get to eat all the food and it tastes so good. Wait, why is there a me on the outside of the painting? Wait, where are you guys going? Guys, don't leave me behind. Guys. Oh no, wait. Am I me? Oh geez. Oh geez.
Oh no.
It's real dark because they just leave painting Laos to die.
Yep. This manga is something else.
It is.
We have the final chapter for our reading, which involves Chilchuck's character flaw. He is the least. He's the least flawed of our protagonists, I think.
He's also the least developed of our protagonists. He's just kind of there most of the unless the series is kicking him and using him as a punching bag, he's just kind of there.
I mean, he's got the same character flaw that Marcel has a lot, which is they have low self-esteem because for some reason this entire adventure they've just been being beaten constantly by Senshi and the group going like, everything you're good at is stupid and doesn't have actual value. Like,
yeah. And it's when the meta narrative seems to agree with that is when it gets particularly strange.
So he's like, I got to prove myself by like, oh, yep, that chest is weird and in the middle, like it's in a desirable location. It's not been touched. That's clearly a mimic. So we're just not going to mention it because I know if I said there's a mimic, Laos over there would be weirdly like wanting to eat the mimic. So we're just not going to deal with it.
This goes well for precisely as long as it takes for it to not, because while Chilchuck is on watch duty, he gets thirsty and there's no water, so he's like, I'm gonna go over to the water fountain, get some water, wake up Marcel so she can do the watch while I'm gone. Oh hey, look, a treasure bug, let me just follow that. Oh, it's going into the mimic room, maybe I should be careful. I have the water skins, I'm heavier now, and I'm stuck in the trap room.
Yeah, there's also a thing about Chilchuck's age. He refuses to tell them.
He's constantly negged about it.
Yeah.
Oh, you young child.
They could definitely afford to back off.
Okay, Sonny.
I am an adult halfling.
He has a battle against the mimic,
who was not the mimic that he thought it was. It was the other mimic. The other box turned out to be a mimic.
Because in this, mimics are just hermit crabs, and I love it.
It's pretty great.
I mean,
a big old crab.
That's what I always imagined them to be. I mean, I've seen a lot of mimic art, but I'm like, hermit crab. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, instead of a sticky goop monster.
Yeah, and it's real fun because we get a whole bit where Chilchuck just gets like a full dungeon puzzle that they solve by themselves. They're real smart. They get to solve everything. And like they basically barely escape before the like mimic is crushed with the gate leaving, and everyone wakes up to be like, "Oh man, yummy, fresh hermit crab,
delicious."
It looks suspiciously like a coconut crab.
It does, but coconut crabs do ridiculously just resemble hermit crabs. They're just hermit crabs with like less steps.
It's also a great scene with Laos and Senshi going like, man, I bet the inside meat and the outside meat together would taste amazing. Nope, this is awful. They have terrible inside meat.
Ugh, gross. Ew.
Oh, and then we also get the fun little tidbit about how Chilchuck was under the impression that mimics ate coin bugs, and he's corrected. Oh, no. Laos is just like, coin bugs eat mimics. They will crawl in, lay their eggs inside, and then a whole bunch of coin bugs will live as a colony in the discarded shell of the mimic. So adventurers will come and see this empty chest, open it up, and there's a bunch of coins inside.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll take the coins elsewhere. It's the circle of life. I hate that. That is so stupid. And Marcella's patting him on the head like, there, you poor thing. You had a bad time. Stop treating me like a child. Well, you won't tell us your age, and hey, look what keeping secrets got you. Okay, fine. I'm 29, or well, I'm 28, turning 29 this year. And Marcel and Senshi are both just like, wow, you really are a child. I am not, you snooty, long-lived racist. And my favorite part here is Elias is just like, Mr. Chilchak, which implies Elias is younger than he is. He's like 20 or something.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Senpai. But yeah, that thus brings us to the end of our reading. And normally we would do favorite character, favorite fight, but there wasn't much fighting, so favorite character and favorite dish. I gotta say, I love Senshi.
Yes.
He's the worst, but he's the worst in all the dwarvish ways that I love.
He's the worst, but he's you.
Yes, exactly.
Shut
You
up.
identify with this character.
Shut up, the lot of you.
I called it first. I was like, this is Sam.
And I'm a bearded gnome.
Dwarf.
Shut up. But yes, she's a lot of fun. And as for favorite dish, honestly, if we're combining like how fun the chapter was with how tasty the food looks, the scallop armor looks really tasty. I would eat the scallop armor.
Interesting choice.
I
love
like
a good
shellfish.
I love a good scallop, especially things roasted or I guess roasted, but it's also kind of like boiling in the shell, like over the grill. Great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
A little bit of butter. Perfect.
Mwah. So how about you, Matt? Favorite character and favorite dish?
I gotta go with my girl Marcel, because holy crap, does she need someone in her corner? Because no one in this manga is.
True.
I don't think the mangaka is either.
I think the mangaka equally just hates elves. You just need to unpack this.
And for favorite dish, I am gonna go with the ghost ice cream.
That's a good one. The ghost sorbet, good check. Good choice. Jay, how about you?
So my favorite character is Chilchak, as we discussed, because he really is the underdog who had some good skills. I have to be an advocate for him. Favorite dish is hard because if you're a long-term listener of this podcast, you know that I love my food and cooking anime and manga. So this is very hard for me. I'd have to go with the fried tempura dish. Just as irritating as it was.
Mm-hmm.
That I think was one of the most creative.
As irritating as the chapter was for just completely missing the mark on all the morals.
Yeah, that was the most like I would never have thought.
I gotta say,
dreams.
that chapter really stands out for managing to be the chapter I feel missed the mark so horribly when the orc chapter also exists.
Yeah.
The bar is not low.
Yeah, so that's why that wins for me.
All right, and Jacob.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I didn't really like any of the characters. I didn't hate anybody, but yeah, I mean, like, I get like the thing of like somebody's got to be in Marcel's corner, and that it's not entirely her fault, but she does. A lot of her pain is self-inflicted. It makes it really hard to defend her. Honestly, I like Sword Friend. If you twisted my arm and said it has to be an actual character, I'd probably go with Chilchak too, because boy, the cases where he gets things wrong really does feel like the author having to beat up on the character that isn't Senshi.
Oh yeah, we did forget to mention that during the bug fight, Laus's sword came to life and warned him that the coins were actually beetles, and like it's like the idea that the sword is alive and he's part of his ecosystem kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sword is now named On Guard.
Didn't really like the characters very much. Sword
fair.
Friend, I guess.
Sword Friend, good choice. And favorite dish. I know that one might be hard
what?
for you.
Oh yeah. That was the thing in this. I'd eat a carrot, so I guess that.
The golem and the fresh vegetables.
Jacob has chosen the golems. Okay.
Look, food is for casuals.
All right. And would you continue reading? I don't know. I need to be in the right mood. Like I said earlier, I feel like this is a solid example of a particular, philosophy of world building, and I appreciate it for all that, but it didn't really grab me. I wouldn't call it a standout example. So, yeah, if I'm feeling like I want some fantasy shenanigans for a chapter 3, I guess then, but I wouldn't seek it out. How about you, Matt?
So I'm pretty sure I've read more than this, because I do distinctly remember them having an issue with a much more human creature.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so I have read more of this. I would be interested. I've yet to check out the anime that came out earlier this month, so I might give that a shot. See if I enjoy that. It is by a studio I should know the name of, but don't know right now.
Not off the top of your head.
So
So that's a yes?
Yeah, I would check it out.
All right. Jay, how about you?
It's by Studio Trigger.
okay.
Oh, Trigger, really?
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh god, that would just make the moments where I said I don't like where this is going for Marcel even worse.
Oh. Well, now you have to check it out.
No.
This is an Eden Zero.
I don't want the tentacle scene to get worse. Oh, Jay, would you continue reading?
So I do have to say I did read a little bit further along in our reading just because the chapter names were interesting and I wanted to see more about where it was going. So, but I have to kind of agree with you, Sam, that it would take a little bit more to kind of necessitate like seeking it out, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
The food's fun, the dungeon crawler is fun, adventure is fun, but I feel like there's just, at least for me, there's kind of an oversaturation of that. So would I mind reading more? Absolutely not. It's enjoyable. It kept my attention, but as far as would I continue reading in the vacuum of other things, probably not.
All right, and Jacob.
No, I would not continue reading. That's pretty solid for me. Not a fan of the characters. The food aspect doesn't interest me in the slightest. The world building is cool. In all honesty, I wouldn't complain about reading more for the podcast. That's the only context I'd ever bother checking this series out again. If I want doofy fantasy nonsense, I would just read more Frieren. So
there you go. All right, and thank you everyone once again for tuning into the Over MangaCast. As always, you can find us on all of your social medias where we are at Over MangaCast.
You can also find us on YouTube where you can like, comment, and subscribe. Those episodes go up on a 2-week delay, so if you want to catch up with our up-to-date stuff, you can head over to overmangacast.com. We even have a way that you can leave comments on episodes there, so tell us what you thought of the episode, tell us what you thought of the series, give us recommendations for other manga that we could read on the show.
Yep, we appreciate reviews in any and all forms. And, if you have suggestions, send them through, because maybe, just maybe, we'll take those suggestions we hear and make our next reading based off of them, which, weirdly enough, Sam, what are we reading next week?
Well, next week we are reading My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps, chapters 1 through 21. One of those weirdly specific sentence titles.
Sam, I will let you know, the listener who suggested this said it would be exactly your kind of trash. So
Yes. So with that in mind.
Oh, boy.
Well, I look forward to finding out about that. We'll see you all next week, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, guys, now that the audience is gone, really, cannibalism isn't what you think it is. And really, it's not even that hard a line. They're dead. They don't care.
We always have this conversation. Sentient people, it's just strange, okay, Matt?
Dead people aren't sentient. That's the problem.
Yeah, but what about the health repercussions?